What if I told you that your sexual desire is not a sin, but a language, a secret way in which God speaks to his chosen ones? Carl Jung made a discovery so profound that religion could never accept it. Sexual desire is not merely lust. It is the whisper of a higher force, trying to awaken something sacred buried deep within the soul. You see, while most people see desire as temptation, Jung understood it as a spiritual dialogue. The attraction, the longing, the obsession, the guilt, the surrender, none of it is random. It is how the divine communicates with those he intends to transform. Every desire carries a message, a hidden code, meant only for those strong enough to feel it fully without being consumed by it. Sex is not evil, it is energy, raw, creative, divine, and only those marked by a higher purpose experience this inner fire so intensely. Do you ever feel torn between purity and passion? Between your mind that says resist and your body that whispers surrender? That paradox is the proof. Because Jung found that the more you repress what you feel, the further you move from what it's trying to teach you. Desire is not here to destroy you. It's here to reveal you. It burns not to punish, but to purify. It is the sacred flame through which the soul remembers who it truly is. Have you ever felt that burning inside you? That flame that won't let you sleep? Carl Jung believed this wasn't just a biological urge. It was something much more profound. When most religious leaders were teaching that sexual desire was something to be suppressed and controlled, Jung was discovering something revolutionary. Desire is a messenger from the divine. In his countless hours working with patients, Jung noticed something fascinating. Those who completely repressed their desires weren't becoming more spiritually enlightened. They were becoming fragmented, developing neuroses and disconnection from their true selves. The more they pushed down that energy, the more it would erupt in unexpected and sometimes destructive ways. Jung's approach was radically different. He suggested that by listening to our desires rather than judging them, we might discover they contain wisdom. This wasn't about giving in to every impulse, quite the opposite. It was about understanding that desire itself carries meaning beyond the physical act. Think about someone you felt intensely attracted to. Beyond their physical appearance, wasn't there something mysterious drawing you in? Something that felt almost like recognition? Jung would say, this is the unconscious mind communicating with you, showing you parts of yourself that remain undeveloped or unexpressed. What made Jung's discovery so revolutionary was his understanding that the psyche is always seeking wholeness. Your desires point to what your soul needs for completion. When you feel that fire inside, it's not just lust. It's your soul recognizing something it needs for growth. In Jung's own words, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And sexual attraction, then, isn't just about physical pleasure. It's about transformation. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. Jung discovered that many of his patients who struggled most intensely with desire were actually spiritually gifted individuals. Their heightened sensitivity wasn't a curse, it was a sign they were attuned to deeper currents of meaning. Their challenge wasn't to eliminate desire, but to understand its language. Imagine desire as a letter addressed specifically to you. The envelope might look ordinary, even provocative, but the message inside is sacred. Most people never open the letter. They either act on the impulse without reflection or reject it without understanding. The chosen ones, according to Jung, are those who have the courage to open the envelope and read the message. This doesn't mean that every attraction should be acted upon. Jung was clear that consciousness and choice remain essential, but he believed that even the most troubling desires contain valuable information about our psychological and spiritual development. For Jung, the sacred and the sexual were never truly separated. In ancient traditions worldwide, he found evidence that sexuality was understood as a divine energy, whether in tantric practices, Taoist sexual yoga, or even in certain mystical Christian traditions that used erotic language to describe the soul's union with God. What modern religion had split apart, Jung sought to reconnect. The body and spirit, the sacred and profane, these weren't opposites but complementary aspects of a single reality. Your desire isn't separate from your spirituality, it's an essential aspect of it. Think of those moments when desire feels almost painful in its intensity. Jung would suggest that this isn't just physical frustration, it's the soul's longing for wholeness, for connection not just with another person, but with the divine spark within them. The fire burns so hot because what's at stake isn't just pleasure, it's transformation. What happens when you deny the voice of desire? According to Jung, it doesn't disappear. It sinks into what he called the shadow, that repository of rejected and disowned aspects of ourselves. But the shadow doesn't remain silent. What we push into darkness doesn't stay there quietly. It grows stronger, more autonomous, and eventually erupts in ways we can't control. This is why so many spiritual leaders who preach the loudest against desire often fall the hardest when their own repressed shadows emerge. The energy wasn't transformed, it was merely suppressed, growing more powerful in the darkness. Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your complete self, requires engaging with the shadow, and desire is often the doorway into this territory. The very attractions that make you uncomfortable might be showing you the parts of yourself that need integration. Think about it. Have you ever been drawn to someone who embodies qualities you wish you had? The confident person who attracts the shy one, the free spirit who captivates the rule follower. Jung would say, this isn't random. Your soul is pointing toward what it needs to become whole. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming complete. And completion requires embracing both light and shadow, both the socially acceptable parts of yourself and the wild, untamed energies you've learned to hide. Desire is often the bridge between these worlds. Jung observed that our first half of life is typically devoted to developing a strong ego and adapting to society's expectations. But the second half calls for something different, a journey inward, a reclaiming of disowned parts, a union of opposites within ourselves. Sexual energy, when understood properly, becomes fuel for this journey. One of Jung's most profound insights was that the divine speaks to us through contrast and opposition. The tension between what you consciously believe and what you unconsciously desire creates an energy that propels growth. If you were completely at peace with yourself, there would be no movement, no development. This is why those who feel desire most intensely are often closest to spiritual awakening. The inner conflict they experience isn't a punishment, it's preparation. The fire burning within isn't meant to consume them, but to transform them into something new. Jung wrote about the sacred marriage, or hieros gamos, the union of masculine and feminine energies within the psyche. This wasn't just a metaphor, but a psychological reality he observed in his patients' dreams and fantasies. As they integrated their opposing inner forces, they experienced not just psychological healing, but spiritual renewal. Consider how desire often brings your attention to what's missing in your life. You might be drawn to someone's creativity because your own has been neglected. You might be attracted to someone's emotional openness because you've been taught to keep your feelings hidden. Each attraction is a clue, pointing toward wholeness. The journey of individuation requires courage. Courage to face what you've denied. Courage to feel what you've numbed. Courage to become what you truly are, rather than what others expect you to be. Desire provides both the map and the energy for this journey. This doesn't mean acting on every impulse. Jung was clear that consciousness must guide this process. But consciousness doesn't mean suppression, it means understanding. It means asking not, how do I eliminate this desire, but what is this desire trying to teach me? In connecting the first chapter's sacred fire to this journey of individuation, we see that desire isn't random or meaningless. It's purposeful, directed, a language the soul uses to guide you toward wholeness. Those chosen ones, Jung identified, weren't chosen for privilege but for transformation. The intensity of their desire matched the magnitude of their potential growth. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Every attraction tells a story if you know how to listen. Jung discovered that our most powerful desires aren't random. They're carefully crafted messages from the unconscious mind, speaking a language older than words. The problem isn't that we desire too much, but that we rarely understand what our desires are actually saying. Think about someone who captivated you completely. Almost like a spell was cast over you. Jung would say this powerful attraction isn't just about their physical appearance. It's about what they represent in your unconscious mind. They've become what Jung called a projection carrier, someone onto whom your soul projects its own hidden treasures and needs. When you feel that magnetic pull towards someone, your soul is essentially saying, "Look here, pay attention. Something important for your growth is happening." The intensity of the feeling isn't meant to confuse you. It's meant to ensure you don't miss the message. Jung found that our attractions often follow patterns. These patterns aren't coincidences. They're the psyche's way of trying to get your attention, repeating the same message until you finally understand it. Maybe you're repeatedly drawn to creative people because your own creativity needs expression. Maybe you're attracted to confident individuals because your own inner authority is waiting to emerge. Learning to decode these messages requires something most people never develop, a relationship with your own unconscious mind. Most of us are taught to value only what's logical, rational, and conscious. But Jung discovered that the unconscious isn't primitive or chaotic. It's intelligent, purposeful, and often wiser than our conscious thinking. One of Jung's most remarkable insights was that the unconscious communicates through symbols and feelings, not direct statements. Your attraction is a symbol pointing towards something your conscious mind hasn't yet recognized. The feeling of desire is like an emotional highlighter, drawing your attention to what matters for your development. Consider how often the very traits that attract you most powerfully to someone are precisely the qualities you need to develop within yourself. The calm presence that fascinates you might be showing you your own need for inner peace. The playful spirit that enchants you might be calling your own joy to awaken. Jung called this the projection of the soul image. Parts of your deeper self that you haven't yet recognized or claimed are projected outward onto others. Your attraction becomes a mirror, reflecting back parts of yourself waiting to be acknowledged and integrated. This isn't just psychological theory, it has practical implications for relationships. Many partnerships struggle because people chase the feeling of attraction without understanding its purpose. They find someone who carries their projections perfectly, only to become frustrated when the initial magic fades. What they don't realize is that the attraction served its purpose. It showed them something about themselves. For those chosen to feel desire intensely, Jung would suggest that the universe has given them a gift, the gift of a louder, clearer soul language. While others might experience subtle nudges toward growth, these individuals receive powerful, unmistakable messages. Their challenge isn't to silence this voice, but to learn its dialect. Jung observed that many great spiritual and creative breakthroughs throughout history were preceded by periods of intense desire and longing. This wasn't coincidental. The energy of desire, when properly understood and channeled, becomes the fuel for transformation. Mozart's passion, Michelangelo's longing, Teresa of Avila's ecstasy, All were expressions of this same creative force. By connecting to the previous chapter on individuation, we see how these whispers of the soul, through attraction, serve the larger journey toward wholeness. Each desire is a puzzle piece, a clue pointing toward what your psyche needs to become complete. The process isn't about following every attraction blindly, but about developing the wisdom to hear what each one is trying to tell you. Shame and guilt have been humanity's companions for centuries when it comes to desire. Jung observed something remarkable in his clinical practice. The heavier the guilt his patients carried about their desires, the more powerful and sometimes destructive those desires became. It wasn't guilt that protected them from their impulses. It was guilt that gave those impulses their overwhelming power. Jung proposed something revolutionary. What if sexual energy isn't something to be controlled through shame, but transformed through understanding? What if the problem isn't the energy itself, but our relationship with it? This perspective stands in stark contrast to many religious traditions that teach desire must be conquered through discipline and self-denial. Think of sexual energy as water. You can build a dam to hold it back, but eventually the pressure builds until the dam cracks. Or you can build channels that direct the water, turning its force into something productive. Jung suggested the latter approach, not suppression, but transformation. This transformation begins with acceptance, not accepting every impulse as something to act upon, but accepting the energy itself as natural, powerful, and potentially sacred. Jung found that when his patients stopped fighting against their desires and started listening to them, something remarkable happened. The compulsive quality often diminished on its own. What makes this approach so powerful is that it addresses the root rather than the symptom. Guilt focuses on behavior, on what you should or shouldn't do. Jung's approach focuses on understanding, on what your desires mean, and how their energy can be channeled toward growth. For centuries, spiritual traditions worldwide have recognized this principle. Tantric practices in Hinduism and Buddhism view sexual energy as a spiritual force that can be directed upward through the body's energy centers. Taoist sexual yoga sees this energy as the foundation for longevity and enlightenment. Even certain Christian mystics spoke of transforming carnal love into divine love, not by elimination, but by elevation. Jung discovered that this transformation isn't just metaphorical, it's a psychological reality. The same energy that expresses itself as sexual desire can be channeled into creativity, spiritual connection, and psychological development. The key is not to cut yourself off from this energy, but to develop a conscious relationship with it. Consider how many great works of art, music, literature, and even spiritual insights have emerged from periods of intense longing and desire. When these energies are neither repressed nor blindly acted upon, but consciously engaged with, they become a creative force unlike any other. Moving beyond guilt doesn't mean abandoning ethics or responsibility. Jung was clear that consciousness and choice remain essential, but he observed that true ethical behavior emerges not from rigid rules imposed from outside, but from an inner alignment with one's deeper values. When you understand the meaning of your desires, rather than just judging them, your choices naturally become more authentic and integrated. For those who feel desire most intensely, the chosen ones mentioned earlier, this transformation is particularly crucial. Their challenge isn't to dampen their sensitivity, but to develop the wisdom to work with such powerful energies. Like someone born with exceptional strength who must learn how to use it without causing harm, these individuals must develop an exceptional consciousness to match their exceptional desires. The liberation from guilt creates space for something new to emerge, a relationship with desire that's neither dominated by compulsion nor constricted by shame. In this space, desire becomes not your master or your enemy, but your teacher and ally. This connects directly to the previous chapter's exploration of the soul's whispers. Once you begin to understand the messages hidden in your attractions, guilt becomes unnecessary. Instead of judging the messenger, you receive the message. Instead of fighting against the energy, you redirect it toward your highest development. Jung found that many of his patients experienced a profound spiritual awakening precisely when they stopped battling their desires and started understanding them. What had seemed like a moral struggle revealed itself as a spiritual initiation. The very energies they had been taught to fear became the foundation for a deeper connection with themselves, others, and the divine. At the heart of Jung's understanding of desire lies one of his most profound concepts, what he called the sacred marriage, or hieros gamos. This isn't just about the union of two people. It's about the union of opposing forces within your own psyche. The tension you feel in desire isn't meant to be eliminated. It's meant to be transformed into something greater than the sum of its parts. Jung discovered that the human psyche naturally seeks balance. Every quality within you searches for its complement, its opposite. The conscious mind seeks connection with the unconscious. The masculine aspects of your psyche seek integration with the feminine. The rational seeks communion with the intuitive. And this search often expresses itself through desire. Think about those moments when attraction feels almost like recognition, as if you've found something you've been searching for without even knowing it. Jung would say this is precisely what's happening. Your soul is recognizing something it needs for completion, something that balances what you already embody. This explains why we're often drawn to people who possess qualities we lack. The organized person who falls for someone spontaneous, the logical thinker captivated by someone intuitive, the quiet soul drawn to someone expressive. These aren't just random preferences. They're the psyche's attempt to find wholeness through relationship. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is that it transforms how we see the purpose of attraction. It's not just about finding a partner or experiencing pleasure. It's about growth, development, and ultimately transformation. Every powerful attraction contains the seed of a potential inner marriage, a union of opposing forces within yourself. Jung observed this pattern not just in his patients' relationships, but in their dreams, fantasies, and creative expressions. Again and again, the unconscious mind produced images of union, the sun meeting the moon, king marrying queen, light embracing darkness. These weren't just romantic fantasies, but symbolic representations of an inner psychological process. The alchemists of old, whom Jung studied extensively, called this the conjunction, the coming together of opposing elements to create something new. They depicted it as the marriage of king and queen, sun and moon, sulfur and mercury. Jung realized they weren't just talking about chemical processes, but about psychological and spiritual transformation. Consider how the most powerful relationships in your life have changed you. The right partnership doesn't just make you happy, it makes you more complete. It challenges you to develop aspects of yourself you might have neglected. It brings into consciousness qualities that had remained dormant. This isn't accidental, it's the sacred marriage at work. But Jung understood something crucial that many miss. This union ultimately needs to happen within you, not just between you and another person. External relationships can reflect and catalyze this process, but the true sacred marriage is internal. The qualities you project onto others and desire in them are qualities waiting to be developed within yourself. This is why relationships often become challenging precisely when they've succeeded in awakening something new in you. Once the projection has done its work and shown you what needs integration, the intensity of the projection naturally diminishes. Many mistake this for falling out of love, when it's actually the completion of love's transformative work. For those experiencing desire with particular intensity, the chosen ones, this sacred marriage takes on special significance. Their powerful attractions aren't random or meaningless, but purposeful calls toward inner union and transformation. The fire they feel isn't meant to consume them, but to forge them into something new. This understanding connects directly to the previous chapter's exploration of moving beyond guilt. When you recognize desire as a call toward wholeness rather than a temptation toward sin, guilt becomes not just unnecessary but counterproductive. The sacred marriage can't take place in an atmosphere of shame and judgment. It requires acceptance, understanding, and even reverence. Jung found that many spiritual traditions worldwide contain references to this sacred marriage, though often in veiled or symbolic language. From tantric unions of Shiva and Shakti to Kabbalistic descriptions of divine masculine and feminine, from Taoist concepts of yin and yang to Christian mystical writings about the soul's marriage with Christ, all point toward this same profound truth about human transformation. The sacred marriage transforms not just how you relate to others, but how you relate to yourself. Parts of yourself that once seemed in conflict, mind and body, spirit and matter, thought and feeling, gradually move toward harmony and integration. The energy of desire becomes the bridge connecting these previously separated aspects of your being. Why do some people feel everything so deeply? Why are some souls marked by desire so intense it seems almost unbearable? Jung discovered something fascinating. These individuals aren't suffering from a disorder or a moral failing. They're experiencing what might be called a spiritual calling, though one rarely recognized by traditional religious frameworks. Jung observed that certain patients came to him with a particular pattern. They felt desire with overwhelming intensity and struggled to integrate these powerful feelings into their lives. Society had taught them to see this sensitivity as a problem to overcome. Jung saw it differently, as a gift with profound purpose, albeit a challenging one. Think about the great mystics throughout history: Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Rumi. All described states of longing and desire so intense they seem to blur the line between the human and divine. What conventional religion often labeled as sinful, these mystics recognized as sacred, a fire that purifies rather than destroys. Jung found that these chosen ones, those who experience desire with particular intensity, often share certain characteristics. They tend to be highly sensitive, not just sexually, but emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. They often feel things others don't even notice. They're attuned to subtle energies, hidden meanings, and deeper currents of life that most people miss entirely. This sensitivity isn't random. Jung suggested it serves a purpose in the greater ecology of human consciousness. Just as certain plants are more sensitive to environmental changes and serve as early warning systems in nature, these individuals are often the first to sense shifts in the collective unconscious, the shared psychic environment we all inhabit. Their intense desires aren't just personal. They're often connected to archetypal energies, those primordial patterns that shape human experience across cultures and throughout history. When they feel drawn toward something or someone, it's not just individual preference at work, but larger forces moving through them. What makes this understanding so powerful is that it transforms suffering into meaning. Many who experience desire intensely spend years believing something is wrong with them, that they're somehow broken or flawed. Jung's perspective offers a radical reframe. They're not broken, but specially attuned, not flawed, but finely calibrated. Consider how many artistic and spiritual breakthroughs throughout history have come from individuals who felt things with unusual intensity. Their sensitivity wasn't a liability, but the very foundation of their contributions. The same fire that caused them pain also fueled their creativity, insight, and connection to something beyond ordinary awareness. Jung observed that these chosen ones often struggle not because their sensitivity is a problem, but because they lack the framework to understand it. Without proper context, their experiences seem random, overwhelming, even threatening. With context, those same experiences become meaningful steps on a journey of transformation. This connects directly to our earlier exploration of the sacred marriage. Those who feel desire most intensely are often experiencing the pull toward inner union with particular force. The opposites within them seek integration with greater urgency. Their challenge isn't to dampen this energy, but to develop the consciousness to work with it purposefully. For those who recognize themselves in this description, Jung would offer both validation and challenge. Validation that their experiences aren't wrong or shameful, but potentially profound. Challenge to develop the awareness and responsibility such sensitivity requires. Like someone given a powerful instrument, they must learn to play it with skill and care. Jung found that many of these individuals experience what might be called a double life, outwardly functioning in society while inwardly navigating currents of feeling and meaning others can't perceive. This creates a particular kind of loneliness, a sense of being fundamentally different from others. Understanding the purpose of their sensitivity can transform this isolation into a sense of meaningful destiny. This isn't about spiritual elitism or claiming special status. Jung was clear that each individual has their own path, their own challenges, their own gifts. But he observed that those who experience desire with unusual intensity often share a particular kind of journey, one that demands extraordinary courage, awareness, and ultimately wisdom. The fire that burns in them isn't punishment for past sins or random biological variation. It's purposeful energy meant to fuel transformation, not just their own, but potentially that of others around them. Throughout history, it's often been these sensitive souls who've brought new insights, creative breakthroughs, and deeper understanding to human consciousness. By connecting this to our previous explorations, we see how these chosen ones embody all we've discussed. They experience the sacred fire with particular intensity. Their journey of individuation is often more turbulent and profound. They receive the soul's whispers with unusual clarity. They're challenged to transform sexual energy into spiritual power, and they experience the pull toward the sacred marriage with special force. For these individuals, desire isn't just a biological drive or psychological preference. It's a language through which the divine speaks directly to them, calling them toward a destiny both challenging and magnificent. Their sensitivity isn't a curse, but a gift, perhaps the most demanding gift of all. Perhaps you've always wondered why you feel everything so deeply, why desire burns in you with an intensity others seem to escape. Society called it a weakness, religion named it sin, and you've spent years trying to dim that fire, only to find it burning brighter than ever. What if this wasn't your burden but your blessing? What if that unrelenting flame inside you wasn't meant to be extinguished but understood? Jung discovered that those who suffer most intensely from desire are often those chosen for the most profound transformation. The very sensitivity that has caused you such pain may be the doorway to your greatest purpose. Stop fighting the fire. Start listening to what it's trying to tell you, for in that sacred flame, in that divine whisper expressed through desire, lies not your destruction, but your rebirth. A path few will walk, but one that leads to depths of wisdom and heights of consciousness this world desperately needs.